Ciao amici, and welcome back to Experience Italy with Friends. Living abroad means constantly discovering things that make you pause, smile, and sometimes scratch your head. Those little cultural quirks that make Italy so wonderfully different. In this episode, we're talking about things that make you go, the funny, surprising, and occasionally confusing things Americans notice in Italy. From bidets and emergency cords in showers to grocery etiquette, fashion rules, and everything in between, we'll share what still catches us off guard, what we've learned to love, and a few things that still make us go, really? Whether you visited Italy before or are planning your first trip, this is a fun look at everyday life. The charming, the curious, and the only in Italy moments that make living here unforgettable. Let's get started. Andiamo! Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Ciao amici, welcome back, and grazie mille for joining us again. I'm your host Tanya, and with me, as always, is my husband Davide.
Ciao a tutti! You know, Tanya, I have a feeling that today it's going to be funny and fun.
I sure hope so. And, yes, we thought we'd switch things up a little this week. Instead of diving deep into a destination or travel planning, we're going to keep things light because honestly, living in Italy gives us plenty to laugh about.
Yeah, we've been living here for a year and, there are still things that, you stop and go like, what?
Exactly. So today we're talking about all those little things Americans find a bit odd or surprising in Italy, from bathroom anomalies, no ice and drinks, to fashion rules. It's all fair game today.
Yeah, and, I'm Italian and there are still some things that make me go,
That's true. And, isn't it all part of the charm? The funny, confusing, and totally lovable quirks that make us love Italy.
Okay, well, grab your drinks with either ice or no ice and get ready to laugh along with us.
Okay, but before we jump into today's topic, as always, let's start with a quick update on life here in Tuscany. Because, it's been a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, a lot has been happening, right, Tanya? And we've been fully enjoying this fall here in Montepulciano. And we've been going to some adventures.
Yes, we have. On the weekends, because, we work from home, we're inside quite a bit during the week. I like to challenge us to get out and explore and try something new. And as we've been talking about the last couple of episodes, we've been going to a ton of Tuscan sagras. So we thought we'd do something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to look at my, must-see list on my Google Maps and was reminded of a hill town called Civita di Bagnoregio. And, we've never been there before. We've driven by it on the highway, but it's in northern Lazio, bordering with Tuscany, and it's about an hour and a half from Montepulciano here. And it's this little town, perched dramatically on a hilltop, and the only way you can get there is this really long pedestrian bridge.
Yeah, Civita is also known as La città che muore, the city or the town that is dying. And it's been dying because it's in the middle of, eroding volcanic cliffs. So just to describe it a little bit, imagine you standing in the Grand Canyon in Arizona and you see all this canyon, and in the middle of canyon, there's a town. So that's how to describe it best.
Yeah, you're right. And it's something like out of a fairy tale or a movie. And if it's foggy and you're standing like on the lookout deck, across from the town, it looks like there's this floating town. And it's, another way to describe it is maybe like in the middle of a lake and it has a huge moat around it, but there's no water.
Yeah. Well, so when we got there, we parked our car in the actual town of Bagnoregio, and then we walked to this bridge. And this bridge, if I can describe it, at first, it's a modern bridge. So it means it has been built. And my head went right away into, was there a different bridge before, or was there a road to this town before? So yeah, there was another bridge before, an older bridge. So they rebuilt that. And so this bridge, you have to walk up, and it's very steep.
And it's long. I mean, right? I mean, I would say, is it quarter of a mile, half a mile?
Yeah. And I mean, it's only like maybe 2 meters wide. So a small car can pass through it. And, once you got up there, you had a workout. So you were ready for a drink or a gelato, whatever.
Exactly. And the town itself is tiny. It actually looks a little bit bigger from further away, this, perched on this cliff. But there's maybe a handful of narrow cobblestone streets and a lot of stone houses covered in ivy. I mean, it's really cute. And a couple of main piazzas. And so we stopped and had drinks and an aperitivo. But what we enjoyed about the town is it had these amazing panoramic views over the Val di Calanchi. It looks a little bit like the Grand Canyon, but you have to imagine, it's kind of vast. It looks a little bit deserty. There are these cliffs, but Davide, you were explaining that they actually harvest the travertino there.
Yeah, the travertino stone that then, it's everywhere here in Tuscany and apparently in Lazio too. So
yeah, so no, it was very peaceful, very like going back in time kind of a vibe. And
I feel just bad. I mean, there's maybe a dozen of residents that live in this town year round. And the only way they get there is with smaller, either like an ape or a scooter, and that's how they get to their homes.
Yeah, and transport some of the goods that obviously they need in the town. So anyway, I loved it. It was a perfect day trip for Montepulciano. It was a nice mix of history, some great photographs. I'm going to post some on our Facebook group page. And it was just really a fun afternoon. Great aperitivo.
Yeah. Well, then, I've been wanting to go to see a Juventus game for so long since we moved here, right? And we finally made it happen. So we made it we made it a birthday trip out of it.
Yes, Davide, you are now double nickels.
Yes. And we went to Torino. That's where Juventus FC is at home. And it was fun to go there, and it was a change of pace, going from two hilltown tops in Tuscany to city life of Torino.
No, it was tons of fun. And, Juventus, as you said, is your favorite team. And so I've been intrigued and wanting to get involved in your passion. And, before we went to the game, which I have to say was my first soccer game ever in Italy, but we went to the Juventus Museum and I enjoyed that. It was like its own little Hall of Fame, museum and this team is over 100 years old. Like, what was it, 1897?
Yep.
And I loved that. And there was this vibe walking through. I was telling you, I'm like, you remember that scene from A League of Their Own, the movie about women's baseball or softball? And they were at the end of the movie walking through and seeing the old pictures and reminiscing. And I felt like that total vibe walking through this Hall of Fame and all the pictures from like the early 1900s. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was mostly impressed with their trophy room. You got into this room and then they had a whole presentation with music, and then they would spotlight the trophy won and stuff like that. That was very impressive to me. But then we got to the game, right, Tanya? And the energy in that stadium was so electric. And you had a lot of questions.
Well, I did. It's my first game. And, you have it on the TV here all the time, but I ignore you unless you have your TV time. And this, I was in it. So I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention. What's going on? And then they, scored a goal and I was all excited. And you're like, no, it doesn't count.
Didn't count. And then you asked me why.
I'm like, why doesn't it count? I saw the ball go in the net.
Yeah, it's offside. And you asked me what's offside. And then I told you, why don't you ask Ted Lasso?
Right. I actually remember that episode and he was so frustrated. But what is offside? I agree with Ted. What the heck?
Seriously, ask, explain what offside is to me.
I still don't quite understand it, except that I know it didn't count. But no, it was a ton of fun. And so it was a great way to kick off our short stay in Torino. And the next day we had the full day to explore the city and It really has a lot of elegant architecture, a lot of great cafes, piazzas, and completely different vibe than central Italy. Like you could really see the history. And I'm going to save more details until a future episode because we decided we're going to do Piedmont and we can cover Torino and the surrounding region. But we had a great time.
Yeah. And to my surprise, the last day, you found a breakfast brunch place in Torino, which had eggs Benedicts and pancakes and all that. And I was like in heaven because I haven't had eggs Benedict since January.
I know, and it's so fun. And people always ask us, our favorite Italian restaurants. And of course, we seek those out too. And we had like traditional Piemontese food. But when we go to bigger cities, like we mentioned before, it's our only time to get more diverse ethnic foods and, even from the U.S. So I knew there would be a great breakfast spot and loved it. Had a great time.
It was really good. So we bought also some muffins and scones and to go.
Yes. So, hey, let's keep moving on. We have another big update. And so you guys remember that apartment we mentioned in our last episode? Well, we made an offer. We met the sellers and they accepted.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised that the sellers were meeting us because in the US, you don't meet the sellers until you maybe, at closing, you meet them or not at all, right?
Right.
But I think here in Italy, it's part of the deal that you actually meet the sellers. They make a big deal. And if you're not simpatico to them, you might not get it. And even though,
Yeah, I don't know. It was different. And I enjoyed it because you kind of approach these deals and purchases really as a transaction, right? And you're thinking, what is it for me? What is it for them? And somehow meeting each other turns it from being this transactional deal to...
Yeah, it makes it personal.
It's personal.
Yeah,
they got to know
personal.
us, what our intent is. We got to know them. And I don't know, I feel like it's actually smoothed the process a little bit, like treating each other as humans and not just the sellers, the buyers.
I remember that they asked us a very personal question. They asked, so how are you going to use the apartment? I said, well, we're going to live here. Oh, you guys are going to live here? And
yeah, you're not going to rent it out as an Airbnb?
Yes.
And they liked that. So I don't know, it helped. And, you guys, I have to say, after this long, long search, and I was really starting to believe I was expecting to find a unicorn, and I would never find the property that checked most of our boxes. And I'm so thrilled that we have, because my number one must-have that I think some people questioned, really, are you going to get it all, is those panoramic views. And, it's those views that justify, like, okay, this is why we moved to Tuscany. And the apartment has the best views west of Montepulciano, overlooking to Montefelonico, to the Val d'Orcia. And it's not just in one room, but in 3 rooms. And to me, that was hitting the jackpot.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the location. It's in the Centro Storico. And maybe you can remember, I said I don't want to live.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not living in the Centro Storico. But here we are, right? But, okay, so the location, what convinced me was that it's right at the beginning of Montepulciano. It's right by the La Porta di Prato. And so the parking is also not a problem because there's parking for residents right by the church, like 2 minutes away. And the views, I mean, it's...
But I think, too, the location is like you can easily go into town, but then you can also easily get out of town, out of the centro, and get to the grocery store still and the surrounding little shops and, access to the highway. So the location, it's like you're in town, but you're not fully in town. And also surprisingly for being in the centro is it's quite spacious, right? And all on one level. Like we looked at many apartments that were multi-level, and that was nice to have that independence, but then the rooms were naturally smaller and you had all these stairs. So I love that it's this old palazzo, just 3 units, tons of character, high ceilings, the decorative floors, and to be in a place that's 200-300 years old, like to wonder like if those walls could just talk.
Yeah, I know. I mean, okay, so it's also move-in ready. However, we wanted to make it our own, so we we're going to remodel it. We're going to remodel the kitchen for sure, and the bathrooms, and
That's going to be its own adventure.
it's going to be its own adventure, and even podcast maybe, right, Tanya? So let's skip that.
Yes, but I hope it's a short-lived adventure to go through all that, but it's going to be fun. And I'm so relieved. Like I feel like I need to share this because you guys have been listening to this journey with us, this last year and our location search and property search and feeling a little bit kind of down about it. But this has finally given, such peace of mind that we know we're going to be here in Montepulciano, not that we're living here now and maybe need to move if we find something, that perfect property in Pienza or Montalcino or over in Umbria. And while that wouldn't be bad, it would just be different. And we've started to feel so settled here and in love with it that it's just such a relief that we see our future.
I know. I'm relieved. You know why? Because it's going to be our last move.
Oh, knock on wood.
Knock on wood, yeah. All right, Tanya. Well, let's move to the episode of today.
Yes, so as you can tell, we've been busy. We've had these new adventures, a little travel, and big news here in Montepulciano. And
yeah, it's a lot is happening, and it's all good though, right,
exactly.
Tanya? So,
and we thought we'd keep the fun going with something a little different today. A lighter, more playful episode, not the heaviness of all the travel details that we tend to get into.
Yeah, like I said, living in Italy now for a year, and there were plenty of moments that you stop and go like, really? So let's talk about that.
Yes, today we're going to talk about all those quirky, funny, and sometimes baffling things we've noticed. And, it's the little things that make Italy unique. And you have to laugh, or sometimes you might cry.
I know. But, okay, so this is not to make fun of Italy or complain. This is all about the charm because, to be honestly, the most things that you find quirky, to me, it's normal because I grew up with them.
But you also lived the same experience moving to the U.S., right?
Yes, exactly.
Every country has its quirks. That's part of what makes it its culture. And you notice it because it's different. Not that it's bad. It's just, it's different than what we're used to. And you sometimes have to just scratch your head and look at things and go, how does this work?
Like, for just one little example I can give. When I moved to the US is when I went to the grocery store and at the cash register, the employee asked me, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Why do you want to know how I'm doing?"
He comes home and tells me this, and I'm like, "How rude, Davide."
Yes.
I'm like, "They're being friendly." He's like, "Well, they don't care in Switzerland how I'm doing."
I thought I was hit on, so...
Anyway, it's what makes living here so much fun. So we're going to share some of those things that make you go, moments.
All right.
Well, let's start with one of the first things Americans tend to notice when they come to Italy, the bathrooms.
Yes, the bathrooms. They're full of mysteries and surprises.
Yes, it's surprising, or maybe not surprising, that it's one of the topics that comes up the most with my clients. Like, I've even had people text me mid-trip asking, "What's with the cord in the shower?"
Yeah, the famous emergency cord.
So if you've never seen one before, it's usually this red or white cord hanging next to the shower or bathtub. And, it's not a light switch or a ventilation fan. It's an emergency alarm meant to be pulled if you slip and fall.
But of course, most visitors that see it, they don't know what it is. So they get really curious and they start to pull. And suddenly comes this bell and rings and so what the hell is going on? It's an alarm and then it triggers, if you're in a hotel,
front desk might come running.
Front desk, calling, or is there police there?
Yep. So word of advice, don't pull unless you're falling, of course. And, while we're on the subject of bathrooms, we have to talk about the other big mystery for Americans, the bidet.
Yes. The Italian bathroom's second throne.
Right. Like, so many clients have also asked about that. Every time my friends are here, my sister was here, like, okay, what's with the bidet? Like, is it an extra toilet?
So just to let you know, it's not for washing your clothes or your feet. Let me say it this way. It's used to remain fresh down there after using throw number one.
Exactly. So Italians see this as totally normal, like it's part of their daily hygiene. But for us Americans, it's always a bit of a moment. And, I have to add that while not intended for feet, it is perfect for shaving your legs. It's a lower sink.
All right. Well, so bidet is an extra feature in the bathroom. But then, on the other hand, there's one thing missing from many Italian bathrooms that always surprises visitors is the toilet seat.
Yes, oh my gosh. Yes, this is primarily in public bathrooms. So don't fret. This is not something normal in a home or in a hotel.
Yeah.
But I've been asked, so many times, like, hey, why is there the toilet seats missing if you go into a public bathroom? And, I don't know if I have a great answer or the right answer, but I have to just sort of assume it's a combination of things. Like one, it's hygiene. Keeping that toilet seat clean could be an issue, to maintain it. And well, I think sometimes people break or steal them.
Yeah, sadly, it's true because, I really curse when I get into a public restroom and I don't see the toilet seat, right? It's easier to just, skip them. But the Italians just kind of, they hover and move on.
Yes, which takes some balance and skill. But once you've traveled Italy for a while, you learn to roll with it. And, since we're on a roll, no pun intended, let's talk about flushing.
Oh, yes. The Italian toilet flush. It's like for you guys a national scavenger hunt, but not for me. I'm used to this.
Seriously, though, people, it's an art, not a science
No,
here.
it's not.
Every bathroom has a different system. Sometimes it's a button on the wall. Sometimes it's on top of the tank. Sometimes it's a foot pedal, or sometimes it's an elevated tank and you have to pull a cord hanging down. And you just got to kind of look around and go, what?
Yeah, when you grow up, it totally makes sense to you. However, and I need to admit that, sometimes you get into a bathroom, you push the flush button and it's not working. And then you go like, and now what? And then you try to see if there's a different system. But sometimes there is. And then there it is. And then you push it. And
you finally find it and then whoosh.
Yeah,
it sounds like a jet taking off. And, it's just funny that Italians love their variety, even in their plumbing.
I know, because Italians are notorious for this. They change the plumbing system and then they just leave the old there because they don't care.
Well, it's one of those little quirks that first make you go, but then you just start to laugh because it's so perfectly Italian. Like even something as simple as flushing the toilet becomes an adventure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, once you've mastered the bathroom, you start noticing other little things about daily life here that also make you go, So, Davide, what is one of the things that you've noticed the most? And actually, you first noticed this in the US, because, this is probably a quirk for all of Europe.
Yes. When I moved to the US, when I wanted to enter a building, I always pushed.
And then he's like running into the door.
And running into the door. And I said, what the hell is going on here? So in the US, when you enter a building, you have to pull. In Italy here, you push. This is, I don't know. But I think, with the years and working in construction in the US, I learned that the reason why you actually pull to enter and push to exit the building makes more sense because of fire.
There's a fire.
Yes. So, if there's a fire, you want to just run out. In Italy, you might die.
So just be prepared that you're going to get it wrong when you are here and push when you should pull and pull when you should push.
Yes.
And you'll get it figured out after you bump your nose a couple of times. So the other thing I find a little quirky about walking around town, whether on sidewalks or on like the shopping streets, is Italians walk slow.
But Tanya, come on. They're just doing a passeggiata, okay?
They're taking their time. And if they're 4 or 5 across, like you are stuck behind the bus. Like it's hard. And then the other thing about like walking against traffic, like there's no rules. Like this is Italy. There's no rules. So you're not thinking like some people are walking on the right and, the against traffic is on the left. No, it's a free for all. And it's like this constant game of chicken, if who's going to move out of each other's way. And you often feel invisible because like they just walk right at you. So we have learned, or at least I have caught on, and I'm like, hold the line, Davide. We're not moving. And the trick is to avert your eyes. If you look up, if you look sideways, if you look down, they will walk around you. But if you do not, if you make eye contact, you are lost and you will be the one darting left, darting right, darting left. And it takes forever to get up a street because you were like in this obstacle course.
Whatever. I just walk and I'll just walk around them because I'm walking faster anyway. They're slow. And this is also something in the US. You will look at me like, why are you walking on that side of the street or even at the mall? Why are you walking that over there where against traffic? And
like you got to stay to the right.
I'm just walking, This is not the street. You just walk.
You need some rules. Speaking of, let's talk about queuing, Davide. How do Italians queue up? Don't they love it?
Well, you mean the lack of queues? I mean, this is so typical in Italy. There's just no queue. There's just everybody in the front. And then just everybody around the entrance. I mean, we saw it at the Sagra when we were actually queuing, that there was no queue. It's just like people coming in the front, buy me food, buy me here, buy me for my friends. Or even in Torino, when we entered the stadium, it's like, there's no queue.
No, and like, if you come in here as an American, and even especially as Minnesota nice, and you want to like follow the rules and line up and be proper, you will be in that line all day because you will never get to the front because of all the other people cutting in line. Like you just got to go for it. And it's elbows, shoulders, politely smiling, saying ciao, but you just need to get to the front of the line and be aggressive.
You know what's funny though? Just to close this, it's like when you are like bumping into each other, then you get into the front, right? Then you look at each other and say, and then you kind of nice, prego, signora, prego.
So funny. Okay, one of the other things I notice walking around is, and we mentioned this, I think, in a previous episode, but Italians dress according to the calendar date,
yes.
Not the temperature. And it is so funny now. We're in, again, a shoulder season. It's fall. It's a beautiful, sunny 65-degree day.
Yeah, in Minnesota, they would wear shorts and T-shirts right now.
Right. So we've adapted a little. We're at least wearing pants and a long sleeve shirt. But you go into town and they've got their hats, their scarves, their puffy coats. And you can just look around and say, okay, I can just completely pick out the tourists from the Italians. And I do not know how they're not melting and just dying of heat. But it's winter. They wear their coats.
Yeah, I wonder if they sweat at all, with their puffy winter coats in 65 degrees weather. But anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to like some daily errands quirks or some essentials. So the first one is going to a pharmacy, Let's say you have a little cough. In the US, you go to Target or Walgreens or CVS, grab your cough medicine, go to the register, you show your ID and you buy it and you're out of there. Here in Italy, you go to the pharmacy and actually everything what's in the US over the counter, you need to get it behind the counter. So you have to ask for your cough medicine. Then they ask you, what kind of cough is this? Is it dry? Is it wet? And, to make sure that you get the right cough medicine, right, Tanya?
I actually kind of like that, though.
Yeah.
You're getting a bit of a doctor. And actually, the pharmacists here, we mentioned this before, serve a little bit more as medical assistants. And they will say, well, let me make sure you pick the right cough medicine, depending on what your need is. So I like that. But I find it comical that you need to get permission, and assistance to buy things that are good for you. But you can get cigarettes out of a dispensing machine basically anywhere around town. Like
right next to the pharmacy.
Right. So controls against medicine, no controls against cigarettes.
Anyway, there's a small joke here that I make in Italian because it's very understandable in Italian. It's you get your caramelle contro la tosse in the pharmacy. And then you get the caramelle per la tosse right next to it on a dispenser. I think you figured out what I meant. So,
yes. Anyway, so again, as you're running around doing your errands, we've mentioned this before, be careful about the time. And we've mentioned the kind of mid-afternoon, but sometimes it's over lunch. Like I just recently, on a walk, went to what we call the Chinese store. It's like a mix between a hardware store and a convenience store, but it's mostly, they say Chinese products, so they call it the Chinese store.
Chinese store, yeah.
And it's closed from 1:30 to 3:30 for lunch. And so I'm like, darn it, I missed it.
Yeah.
I'll need to come back later. So
it's annoying, but it's annoying to Americans because they're used to that they have stores open 24/7,
Right. So anywho, another thing I hear a lot about and kind of creating a need for an errand sometimes is to go to a laundromat, because a lot of apartments and homes and, hotels have washing machines, but they do not have dryers. And I don't know if we mentioned this before, but most Italians dry their clothes on clotheslines outdoors. And, we're probably a little unusual that we purchased a dryer. And I have to say, they don't even function the same as dryers at home, mostly, but not quite. So you're not going to find that. And if you're looking for an Airbnb with a washer, you need to specifically look to see if it has a dryer, if that's important to you. And it's going to take twice as long to dry anything, but...
And it still gets not dried like a US dryer. Right.
But you can go to a laundromat. So we do that often sometimes when we have a bunch of towels or bedding, and they have the big, massive commercial dryers like we have in the US. So if all else fails and you can't get your clothes dry, go to a laundromat.
Exactly. But, Italians, to defend Italians a little bit, they rather use sun energy than electricity to dry.
No, it's expensive. It makes sense. So,
but on the other hand, I say, like, what do they do in winter in Torino when it's foggy and humid and wet? So anyway, okay, the next things I want to talk about is something that actually really important, and it's not, but it still makes you go, really? So in Italy, when you get stopped by the police, either pulled over or even walking, and you get stopped by the police and they ask you for ID, show your ID. They don't need to have cause like in the US, right? And so carry always your passport or national ID or military card with you, because they don't need cause. They'll ask you for ID and be ready to give your ID.
Yeah, it's nice to give people a heads up about that. So, but let's move on to something that, might be one of our favorite things to talk about is, and the things that make you go, because let's talk about food quirks.
My favorite topic.
So, Davide, kick us off. What is one of the things you noticed first when we moved here after getting used to it in the U.S.?
After living for 24 years in the U.S., I got used to have ice in my drinks. Water, soft drinks, there was always ice. And so it tastes better with ice. So I get really mad when I get here and I order a Coke and it comes like lukewarm, and said, who drinks lukewarm Coke? It tastes so bad and it makes me mad. And you probably can hear it in my voice right now.
And then he becomes the American traveler who says, can I have some ice, please? And they look at him like, what?
Per favore, mi può portare un po' di ghiaccio? Can you bring me some ice, please? Yes. And then they come back with like 3 little tiny ice cubes. And I go like, what is this?
I love it.
Makes me mad.
Okay. Well, my little contention about lack of something is mustard. And I was just reminded of this at the soccer game because there was a hot dog stand. And so I had to peek over because I didn't get the hot dog. I got actually the chicken sandwich that's more local. But I had to see at the hot dog stand if they had mustard. And of course not, but this country is obsessed with mayonnaise. And so you have mayonnaise with your French fries. You put mayonnaise and ketchup on your hot dogs and on your hamburgers. And they just do not use mustard here, and which is a little strange because in Switzerland they did. In Germany they do.
Yeah.
And and you can buy it at a grocery store, but nowhere in a restaurant, fast food, can you find mustard.
No, it's very sad. Let me put it this way. We have 2 different mustards in our fridge, right? You have your yellow.
I still can't find the true French's mustard.
Yeah. And I have my Dijon mustard that I really love. So
I think there's going to be a bottle in my suitcase when we come back from the US. So, Davide, another thing that you learned, I have to say, as a tried and true Italian, you are still getting schooled on a couple of things and learning something new here. So what was your recent experience?
Well, recently or not so recently, I went to this panino shop and wanted to make my own panino. And so I asked, can I have mortadella, salami, and capicollo, I think? And he looks at me, right? What are you doing? I said, what do you mean? One meat. Just pick one meat. You cannot eat mortadella with prosciutto or salami together. And I go like, really? Is this a thing here in Italy that you just... And then I noticed any of the sandwiches that they were making, it's just one kind of meat. That's not mixed like...
The Dagwood sandwich that you have in the US.
You know,
Mountain High, 5 different meats to go to Subway.
Oh, it's just... That's kind of... You know, I mean, I've eaten like Jimmy John's sandwiches or any Italian sub, and they're delicious when they're packed with meat. You know,
well, not here, Davide. You need to let the one meat shine through. So one of the things I still, going to the grocery store, a couple of things I get reminded of. And, when my sister was here, she had to ask because she was at an Airbnb and said, went to the grocery store, needed some milk and eggs. And the first thing you realize when you're looking for eggs is they're not in the dairy section. They're not refrigerated. And Davide, you were just explaining this to me that it's because in the US, they sterilize the eggs, which then makes the shell porous to bacteria. So they have to keep them refrigerated. But here in Italy, they don't, so that you've got the natural coating and eggs just sit on the shelf.
Yep, and they're fine. They're just fine. You can even leave them when you get home. You still put them in the fridge. No, you just can leave it on the counter if you wanted to. So they're totally fine.
Yep. And then you have milk. And so I had noticed this actually living in Switzerland, because all of Europe is this way, that they do have refrigerated milk if you want to get
fresh milk.
Fresh milk. But then there's also boxed milk on the shelf. And you're like, how can milk be non-refrigerated? And then you explained to me there's this UHT milk. And so explain it.
Yeah, it's ultra heat treated. So that means they kill all the microbiotics and bacteria that's still in the milk. And then they, it's briefly put the milk in high temperatures, just briefly. Then bring the temperature down. Then they pack it in some extra made containers that you can keep the milk then on the shelf for a long time.
Yeah, it's actually quite convenient because we always have 1 or 2 boxes kind of as backup in case we don't have the fresh milk.
Yeah.
Got one on hand.
Yeah, because then you ask, can I have a cappuccino? Oh, we're out of milk. Not anymore.
So the other thing, and I have to say that one of these things I have to do in a grocery store because they yell at you at the register as soon as you get there is you need to have your produce in a plastic bag with a sticker on it that you went to the scale and you had to weigh and get your own scanner tag on your produce. So in the produce section, remember to do that. There's numbers on the produce to tell you what its code is. Yep. You go to the scale, put it in a bag, put the number in, and you get a sticker. So that part, you learn the hard way usually the first time when you're at the register and they're like, oh, geez, here's a tourist, doesn't know the system. So that one you never forget. But then there are these gloves also by the scales that you're supposed to use, plastic gloves, when you're going and picking your fruit and vegetables, which I didn't really know. And no one's usually glaring at me. But etiquette is that you should be using gloves before you touch any produce.
And this etiquette came right after COVID because people did not know what this COVID was. So they handed out gloves. And I mean, when I go to Conat here in Montepulciano, a lot of people are not using gloves. But then again, this is a touristic city. And so there are a lot of tourists shopping too that don't use gloves. So anyway.
I learned that. So I don't know. Those are a couple of the food quirks that we wanted to share.
Yeah. After living here now for a year, sometimes it just still feels like a quirk, but we're getting used to it. So
And now we're going to go back to the US and complain that things are different there.
yeah, which we did when we were living in Switzerland and went to the US and complained about everything.
No,
Anyway.
it becomes second nature. You get schooled and, we sometimes laugh still, but it's overall, it's endearing and it's what makes Italy feel Italian. So we love it.
Anyway, so I mean, we covered a lot of these quirks and I think we probably missed some. And this is where you guys come in. If you think we missed some that are worth to talk about it, write us on either info@amicivacations.com or on our Facebook page group, Experience Italy with Friends, and post it.
Yeah, share your things that make you go,
Maybe we're going to make another episode out of that. Things that make you go, too. Well, we're at the end of this episode, and usually we leave you with some tips from Tanya. Tips from Tanya.
Okay, amici, before we say ciao, I've got a few quick but important updates to share for anyone planning their Italy trip in 2026. There's a couple of things we're seeing on the radar that could make a difference in your planning. Tip number 1, just a reminder to everybody that there is the Winter Olympics coming up. And that is super exciting that it's going to be in Northern Italy, in Milan and Cortina.
Mm-hmm.
But so, that means if you're coming here in January, February, you just need to be aware that lodging may be filling up faster, transport's going to get busier, and you just need to start planning a little bit earlier and thinking about alternatives if you want to be in a place with fewer crowds.
Yeah. I kind of want to go there, but I'm afraid that, we won't find lodging now because I'm sure it's already booked out and stuff like that.
Well, if we're going to go, we need to get on it now, I guess, is the tip here.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to get caught up in all that, you need to purposely delay when you're going to Northern Italy. So it could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, move on to tip number 2 is related to trains and transportations. I mean, there's always, I guess we should say another quirk about Italy we haven't talked about is the frequency of train delays and strikes and issues. So that's part of the norm of Italy. But I would say this last year, and I think what's predicted for next year is, further upgrades to the infrastructure and changes to the train schedule. So, for example, this year they closed the train from Milan to Verona in Lake Como for the summer. And they did it during the summer months because that's when there wasn't any school because the kids rely on the trains too. So you just need to sometimes look ahead and also make sure there's a little bit more buffer on your travel days if you're going by train because you could be an hour or two delayed because of it. And we just had this experience going to Torino.
Yeah.
So there's the normal delays and then there's infrastructure delays. So just FYI. The last tip, and we touched on this in a few episodes ago, is remember the EES system, entry-exit system we talked about? It's now operational and it's actually in effect for all of the Schengen territories, which is most of the EU. And that is just like it's a digital biometric reader that you're getting your picture, your fingerprints, that's going on, but there's nothing you need to do in advance. Just be aware that as you're going through customs. Now in Europe, you're going to be going through the EES system. The other system we talked about, ETIAS, that's kind of the entry permit, not really a visa, but you have to pre-register. That's still not expected to be operational until late 2026. So you don't need it yet if you're planning to come here early in the year, but make sure you keep an eye on it and continue to monitor the official EU website, a month or two in advance of your trip. And just, again, avoid any third-party sites that are out there saying it's live and they're wanting to charge you a fee.
Yeah, it's always use the official sites to do that.
Okay, well, that's all I have for you, Davide.
Well, those are great tips, Tanya, for 2026. I need to add another one. All right. So you've been really busy in 2025. You still have some trips left, but you already started planning for people in 2026. And you have already, a bunch of trips that you have to plan for next year. So my tip would be, if you are planning a trip for next year, to contact Tanya sooner than later because she's getting really busy here. So
Yes, you're absolutely right, Davide. 2026 is looking to be a busy year. And, we commented, 2025 was somewhat, a down year in many respects. I mean, I was super busy, thankfully, but I have a feeling 2026 might bounce back a little bit after this year of Jubilee. If anybody was, deferring and delaying their trips, the year is here. So get a head start.
All right. Well, Tanya, I told you this episode was going to be fun and funny.
Yes, we talked about the quirky chords and showers to the mystery of the 3 ice cubes.
And the bidet.
Yeah, so Italy definitely gives us plenty to smile and shake our heads about.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what makes it special to live here, Tanya, right?
Exactly. It's not always logical, but it's always full of character, and we love it.
Well, thanks again for tuning in. And another reminder is to join our Experience Italy with Friends Facebook group page, or just write us on info@amici-vacations.com.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. But until next time, everyone.
Ciao.
Ciao, amici. We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.